The slave market of Prime was the largest in the known galaxy. It sat in the heart of the capital city, a massive building made of black stone and glowing blue crystals. Every day, thousands of beings from conquered worlds were brought here. They were sold like animals to wealthy nobles and military commanders. Stood in chains at the center of the auction floor. His body was thin from months of poor food. His skin showed scars from beatings and hard labor, but his eyes were clear and steady. They held no fear. He was the last human in this group. 3 years ago, the Empire had come to Earth. Their ships filled the sky like a dark cloud. Humanity fought back with everything they had: missiles, bombs, soldiers on every street, but they were too advanced. Their weapons turned cities to ash in seconds. Remembered the day he was captured. He was a Special Forces soldier leading his team through the ruins of Seoul. They had killed dozens of warriors using tricks and traps, but in the end there were too many. His team died one by one. He was the only survivor. Now he stood here, far from home, waiting to be sold. The auctioneer was tall with gray skin and 4 eyes. He walked around slowly, speaking to the crowd in a bored voice. Next item, a human male from the planet called Earth, a primitive world. These creatures have low intelligence and weak bodies, good only for simple labor. Starting price is 50 credits. The crowd laughed. 50 credits was nothing. It was the price of a meal. Did not react. He had learned to hide his feelings long ago. He watched the crowd instead, studying their faces. Most were nobles in expensive clothes. They looked at him like he was a strange insect. One voice rose above the laughter. "I will take him, 60 credits." The speaker was commander, knew him by reputation, was famous for his cruelty. He enjoyed breaking slaves. He enjoyed watching them suffer. His last human servant had died after only 2 weeks. Smiled at with sharp teeth. "I have plans for you, little creature." Met his eyes without looking away. This seemed to annoy. The commander's smile faded slightly. 70 credits, another voice called out. Turned sharply, 80. 100. The crowd grew quiet. People looked around, trying to see who was bidding. The voice came from a private balcony above the auction floor. Heavy curtains hid whoever was inside. His face turned dark with anger. 200 credits. There was a pause. Then the curtain moved and a figure stepped forward into the light. It was Princess, eldest daughter of Emperor. She was tall and graceful, with silver skin and eyes like purple gemstones. Her white hair fell past her shoulders like water. She wore a simple black dress, but everyone knew who she was. The crowd immediately bowed their heads. 10,000 credits, she said calmly. The silence was complete. 10,000 credits could buy 100 slaves. It could buy a small ship. No one understood why a princess would pay so much for a worthless human. His hands became fists. "Your Highness, surely you are joking. This creature is worth nothing. It is a waste of your time and resources." Walked slowly down the stairs from her balcony. The crowd parted for her like water around a stone. She stopped in front of and looked at him carefully. Looked back at her. He knew he should lower his eyes like a proper slave, but something stopped him. He had faced death many times. He had nothing left to fear. For a long moment they simply stared at each other. Something passed between them. An understanding, a recognition. Turned to face. Her voice was soft but sharp like a knife. "Commander, I do not remember asking for your opinion. The bid stands, unless you wish to go higher." His jaw tightened. He wanted to argue, but challenging a princess in public was dangerous, even for a powerful commander. He forced himself to bow. "Of course, Your Highness, the human is yours." Smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. She leaned closer too and whispered just loud enough for nearby nobles to hear. "He is ours now, and I always collect what interests me." Guards came forward and removed chains. They replaced them with lighter ones made of silver metal. These were the chains of a palace servant, not a labor slave. As they led him away, heard the whispers starting. Why did the princess want a human? What was she planning? Was she mad? Wondered the same things. But he also felt something he had not felt in 3 years. Hope. Whatever the princess wanted, it was better than dying in his hands. And where there was life, there was a chance. The journey to the imperial palace took 2 hours. Sat in a transport vehicle with dark windows. He could not see outside, but he could feel the vehicle rising higher and higher. The palace was built on a mountain, looking down on the city below. When they arrived, 2 servants took him to a small but clean room. There was a bed with actual blankets. A window showed a view of the purple sky. A table held fresh food and water. Had not seen such luxury since Earth. He ate slowly, careful not to make himself sick. His stomach had forgotten what real food tasted like. As he ate, he thought about his situation. The princess had bought him for a reason. She had seen something in him, something the others missed. He needed to understand what she wanted. Then he could decide how to use it. A guard came to the door. The princess will see you tomorrow. Rest tonight. You will need your strength. The door closed, lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Outside, 3 moons rose slowly in the alien sky. He thought about Earth, about his family probably dead now, about his team definitely dead, about the billions of humans still suffering under rule. He made a silent promise to them all. I will find a way, I will survive, and one day I will make them pay for what they did. With that thought, he closed his eyes and slept. It was his first peaceful sleep in 3 years. The imperial palace was a city within a city. It had thousands of rooms, hundreds of gardens, and secrets in every shadow. Learned this quickly in his first weeks as princess servant. His duties were simple. He carried things. He stood quietly during meetings. He brought food and drinks when asked. He was supposed to be invisible, like furniture that could walk. But was never just standing. He was always watching, always listening, always learning. The palace was full of nobles who smiled at each other while planning betrayal. Every conversation had 2 meanings. Every friendship was a lie. Had seen politics on Earth, but nothing like this. Here, losing a political game meant death. Princess seemed to understand the game better than anyone. She moved through the palace like a dancer, always saying the right words, always wearing the right smile. But noticed that her eyes were always cold. She trusted no one. She also seemed to be testing him. It started with small things. She would leave documents on her desk when he came to clean her room. Military reports, trade agreements, secret messages. A normal slave would not be able to read writing, but had spent his months in the labor camps learning. He had forced himself to understand the language of his captors. He pretended not to notice the documents, but he read every word. Then she started speaking in military codes during meetings. Simple codes that any soldier would recognize. She would glance at him afterward, watching his reaction. Kept his face empty, but inside he was impressed. She was smart. She suspected that humans were more intelligent than the Empire believed. She was trying to prove it. He decided to give her small hints, nothing obvious, just tiny reactions that showed he understood more than he should. A slight tension when she mentioned Earth, a quick glance when she used a code word, enough to keep her interested. It was a dangerous game. If she reported him, he would be killed for deceiving his masters, but sensed that she was not his enemy, at least not yet. Meanwhile, Commander had not forgotten his humiliation at the auction. He could not attack the princess directly, but he could attack her property. Began to experience accidents. He would walk down a corridor and suddenly soldiers would appear. They would beat him in dark corners where no one could see. They would steal his food. They would wake him in the middle of the night for no reason. He never complained. He never fought back. He simply endured night after night, beating after beating. The other palace slaves began to whisper about him. Some said he was stupid, unable to understand what was happening. Others said he was broken, his spirit already destroyed. But a few looked at him differently. They saw the fire still burning behind his calm eyes. One of these was Sara. Sara was a human scientist, captured during the invasion. She worked in the palace laboratories, helping scientists with their research. They kept her alive because her knowledge was useful. She understood things about biology and chemistry that even their advanced technology could not match. She found one night after a particularly bad beating. He was sitting alone in a storage room, cleaning blood from his face. "You should fight back," she said quietly, sitting beside him, "or at least report them." Shook his head. "Fighting back would give them an excuse to kill me. Reporting would show weakness. They want me to break. I will not give them that satisfaction." Sara looked at him for a long moment. "You are not like other slaves." "I was a soldier. We are trained to survive." "The princess knows, does she not? She knows you are more than you pretend to be." Said nothing, but his silence was answer enough. Sara leaned closer. "There are others like us, humans and aliens who have not given up hope. We watch, we wait, we remember. When the time comes, we will be ready." She left without saying more, but understood. There was a resistance. Somewhere in this palace, in this empire, people were fighting back in secret. He was not alone. 2 weeks later, Princess called him to her private chambers. It was late at night. The palace was quiet. She sat by a window, looking out at the 3 moons. She did not turn around when he entered. "Close the door," she said. Obeyed, he stood in silence, waiting. "I have watched you," she said finally. "I have tested you. I have seen how you move, how you listen, how you survive. You are not what you pretend to be." Remained silent. Turned to face him. Her purple eyes seemed to glow in the moonlight. "You understand everything, do you not? Every word I speak, every document I leave for you to find, every code I use." Still said nothing. She walked toward him slowly. "I have studied your species. When our fleet first attacked Earth, we expected victory in hours. Instead, it took 3 months. 3 months against a world with no space travel, no energy shields, no plasma weapons. Your people fought with primitive guns and explosives, and they nearly stopped us." She stopped directly in front of him. How did you resist for so long?" Looked at her. He had kept silent for so long. He had hidden behind a mask of stupidity and submission, but something in her voice told him the time for hiding was over. "Because we do not know how to give up," he said. His voice was rough from lack of use. "It is not in our nature. You can beat us. You can starve us. You can kill us by the millions, but you cannot make us stop fighting. Not ever." Stared at him. For the first time he saw surprise in her eyes and something else, respect. "I knew it," she whispered. "I knew there was more to your kind." "Why do you care?" asked. "Why does a princess of the empire want to understand humans?" Was quiet for a moment, then she walked back to the window. "Because the empire is dying," she said softly. "We have grown weak and proud. We conquer worlds, but we learn nothing from them. We see other species as animals, not as people, and one day that arrogance will destroy us." She looked at him over her shoulder. "I believe humans may be the key to saving us, or destroying us. I have not decided which outcome I prefer." Felt a chill run down his spine. This princess was more dangerous than he had realized. She was not just playing political games. She was planning something much bigger. "What do you want from me?" he asked. Smiled. It was the first real smile he had seen from her. "I want to know everything about humanity, your history, your wars, your science, your art. I want to understand how a species so primitive could be so strong." She walked to her desk and picked up a small device. She pressed it into his hand. "This will let you access the palace archives. Learn everything you can about the empire. In return, you will teach me about Earth." Looked at the device. It was a key to knowledge, a key to power. And if I refuse, then I will sell you to Commander and you will die within a week. Her voice was matter of fact. But I do not think you will refuse. You want to survive. You want to help your people. And I am offering you the chance to do both. Closed his fingers around the device. She was right. He had no choice. But more than that, he saw opportunity. Then we have a deal, Princess. Nodded. Good, we begin tomorrow. Now go get some rest, you will need it. Bowed and left. As he walked back to his room, he felt the weight of the device in his hand. He thought about Sara and the resistance. He thought about Earth and its billions of slaves. The game had changed. He was no longer just surviving. He was learning, growing, preparing. One day, he would use everything he learned against them. One day, humanity would rise. But for now, he would play the princess's game, and he would play it better than she could imagine. 6 months passed, spent every free moment in the palace archives. He learned about the Empire, its history, its military, its weaknesses. He studied their combat techniques. He memorized their ship designs. He understood their politics. In return, he taught Princess about Earth. He told her about human wars, the ones that shaped civilizations. He explained how humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other, developing new weapons, new strategies, new ways to survive. He showed her that what they called primitive was actually dangerous. Listened to everything. She asked questions that showed her sharp mind. She was particularly interested in something called guerrilla warfare. The idea that small groups could defeat larger armies through tricks and patience amazed her. Your people fight without honor, she said one evening. You hide, you use traps, you attack from shadows. Honor does not win wars, replied. Survival does. Seemed troubled by this, but she did not stop listening. Commander watched all of this from the shadows. His spies told him about the princess spending time with her human slave. They told him about private meetings and secret conversations. His hatred grew stronger every day. Then came the announcement of the Tournament of Dominion. This tournament happened every year. Warriors from all conquered species fought in a great arena. The species that won received better treatment. The species that lost faced harsher rules. It was a way for the Empire to remind everyone of their power. Saw his opportunity. He came to the great hall during the morning assembly. Nobles and officers filled the room. Emperor sat on his golden throne, looking bored. Princess stood among the other royal children. Walked to the center of the room and bowed to the emperor. Your Majesty, I wish to invoke the right of challenge. The room fell silent. The right of challenge was an ancient law. It allowed any noble to enter a slave into the tournament. It was rarely used because losing brought great shame. Emperor raised an eyebrow. Against whom do you challenge? Turned to face, his smile was cruel. I challenge Princess to enter her human pet into the tournament. Let us see if this primitive creature can fight as well as its master claims. Let us prove once and for all that humans are nothing but weak animals. Whispers filled the room. Everyone knew about's hatred for. Everyone knew this was a trap. The human would fight against a champion, or stronger, faster, and better trained. The human would die and would be humiliated. The emperor looked at his daughter. Well, do you accept? His face showed nothing, but standing in the back of the room saw her hands tighten slightly. If she refused, she would admit that humans were inferior. Her reputation would suffer. Her enemies would grow bolder. If she accepted, would almost certainly die. She looked across the room. For just a moment her eyes met. He gave her a tiny nod. I accept, said clearly. Smile grew wider. Excellent. The tournament is in 3 weeks. I look forward to watching your pet die. He bowed to the emperor and left. The room exploded with talk. That night came to his room. Her calm mask had cracked slightly. He could see worry in her eyes. I had no choice, she said. If I had refused, everything we have built would be destroyed. I know, sat on his bed thinking. Tell me about the tournament, how does it work? Single combat, no weapons for slaves. The champion will have armor and a sword. The fight continues until one fighter cannot continue. Until death. Usually. Nodded slowly. And the champion, who will I fight? Will choose. He will pick the best fighter he can find, someone undefeated, someone brutal. Good. Stared at him. Good, did you not hear me? You will be fighting without weapons against an armored opponent. You will die. Stood up, he walked to the window and looked out at the moons. Princess, before I was captured, I served 12 years in Earth Special Forces. I have killed more men than I can count. I have survived situations that should have been impossible. I have been shot, stabbed, and beaten, and I am still here. He turned to face her. They think strength is everything. They think armor makes them safe. They think their size makes them unbeatable. They are wrong. You truly believe you can win? I do not believe anything, I know. I have studied your people. I have learned your combat techniques. I know your weaknesses. Every species has weaknesses. Was quiet for a long moment. Then she made a decision. I will give you access to the training facilities. The best weapons masters in the palace will teach you. You will learn everything we know about combat. And the archives. I need to study physiology. Their bodies must have weak points. Nodded, I will arrange it, but if you lose, I cannot save you. You understand this? I understand. But if I win, the whole empire will know that humans are not animals. They will know we are fighters. That is worth the risk. She studied his face for a long time. Whatever she saw there seemed to satisfy her. Very well, we begin tomorrow. The next 3 weeks were the hardest of his life. Every day he trained from dawn until late at night. He fought against weapons masters who did not hold back. He was beaten, thrown, and cut. But every day he learned something new. He studied the archives obsessively. He learned that had a cluster of nerves at the base of their throat. One precise strike could paralyze them. He learned that their knee joints bent slightly differently than human knees, making them vulnerable to certain attacks. He learned that their armor had gaps at the neck and under the arms. A week before the tournament, Sora found him in the training room late at night. He was practicing alone, his body covered in bruises. I have news, she said quietly. Bad news. Stop to tell me. Has changed the rules. He used his influence with the tournament officials. You will not fight one champion. How many? 3, one after another. No rest between fights. Was silent, 3 fights, without weapons, against armored opponents. Even for him, that would be almost impossible. There is more, Sora continued. I have a contact in the resistance. His name is Park. He leads the human underground in the slave camps. He has been watching you. He says you have given our people hope. They are talking about the human who will fight in the tournament. They are praying for your victory. Felt the weight of those words. It was not just his life at stake. It was the hope of every human in the empire. Tell I will not let them down. Sora looked at him with tears in her eyes. How can you be so calm? How can you face death without fear? Thought about her question. He remembered his team on Earth, dying one by one while fighting against impossible odds. He remembered promising himself that he would make their deaths mean something. I am not without fear, he said finally. But fear is just a feeling. It does not control me. I control it. That is what makes us human. We feel fear, but we fight anyway. Sora nodded. She reached out and touched his arm briefly. Win tomorrow, win for all of us. Then she was gone. Returned to his training. He practiced until his body screamed for rest. He practiced until his hands bled. He practiced until the suns began to rise. Then he stopped. He looked at his hands and strong. Tomorrow the whole empire would watch. Tomorrow they would see what humanity could do. He smiled grimly. They had no idea what was coming. The Colosseum of Prime was older than the Empire itself. It could hold 1 million spectators. Today, every seat was filled. Screens broadcast the tournament across 1,000 worlds. Billions watched from their homes in slave camps and military ships. The Tournament of Dominion had many fights, but everyone knew which one truly mattered. The human slave against the champions. Everyone wanted to see the primitive creature die. Waited in a dark tunnel beneath the arena. His body was calm, his breathing slow. He had prepared for this moment his entire life, not just the past 3 weeks, his entire life. He wore simple gray clothes, no armor, no weapons. The rules for slaves were clear. He would fight with nothing but his hands and his mind. He could hear the roar of the crowd above. They were chanting, eager for blood, his blood. A guard came to his cell. "It is time, human. Try not to die too quickly. The people want a good show." Said nothing. He followed the guard through the tunnel toward the light. The arena floor was made of white sand. It stretched out like a small desert, surrounded by walls 30 feet high. Above the walls, the crowd screamed and shouted. Their voices mixed into a single sound, like thunder that never stopped. At one end of the arena sat Emperor on a raised platform. His throne was gold and black. His cold eyes watched everything. Beside him sat Princess. Her face was a perfect mask, showing nothing. At the other end stood Commander. He smiled as walked onto the sand. His hatred was clear for everyone to see. An announcer's voice boomed across the arena. "Citizens of the Empire, today we witness a special challenge. The human slave of Princess will face not 1, not 2, but 3 champions. Watch as the might of our empire crushes this primitive creature." The crowd roared with approval. A gate opened, and the first champion walked out. He was huge, even for a 7 feet tall with gray skin covered in ritual scars. He wore heavy black armor and carried a curved sword that glowed with energy. His name was announced but did not listen. Names did not matter. Only survival mattered. The champion looked at and laughed. It was a deep, rumbling sound. "This is what I am fighting. This small, weak thing. I have killed children larger than this." The crowd laughed with him. Stood still, he watched the champion's movements, the way he shifted his weight, the way he held his sword, the slight stiffness in his left shoulder from an old injury. The announcer raised his hand. "Let the fight begin." The champion charged. He was fast, much faster than his size suggested. His sword cut through the air towards head. Moved. He did not try to block. Blocking was impossible without a weapon. Instead, he stepped to the left, letting the blade pass inches from his face. At the same moment, he grabbed the champion's sword arm and pulled. The champion stumbled forward, surprised by his own momentum. Used that moment to strike. His hand shot out and hit the base of the champion's throat, exactly where the nerve cluster was located. The champion made a choking sound. His sword fell from numb fingers. His legs stopped working. Before the giant could fall, caught his head and twisted sharply. There was a loud crack. The champion dropped to the sand, dead. The entire arena went silent. 1 million stared in shock. The fight had lasted less than 30 seconds. Then someone screamed. Others joined. The silence became chaos. People shouted in anger and disbelief. How had a primitive human killed a champion so quickly? Emperor leaned forward on his throne. His eyes narrowed with interest. Commander's face turned dark with fury. He signaled to the officials, "Send the next one, now." The second champion entered the arena. This one was smaller but faster. He wore lighter armor and carried 2 short swords. He did not underestimate. His stance was careful, professional. They circled each other slowly. The crowd held its breath. This fight was longer. The champion attacked with precise strikes, never overreaching, never losing balance. Dodged and weaved, but he could not find an opening. The armor protected all the weak points he knew. Sweat ran down his face. His muscles burned with tiredness. The first fight had been fast, but it had still cost him energy. He needed to end this quickly. The champion saw his exhaustion and attacked harder. One blade cut his arm. Blood sprayed onto the white sand. The crowd cheered. Let himself fall backward as if the wound had weakened him. The champion saw his chance and rushed forward for the kill. That was his mistake. Had not fallen from weakness. He had fallen to create an opening. As the champion lunged, rolled under his strike and came up behind him, he grabbed the back of the champion's helmet and smashed it forward into the arena wall. The champion staggered. His helmet was damaged, his vision blocked. He swung blindly with his swords. Moved inside his guard. He found the gap under the champion's arm where the armor did not cover. He struck with his palm, driving upward with all his strength. The champion gasped. He dropped his swords and grabbed his side, struck again, this time to the knee. The joint bent the wrong way. The champion fell. Picked up one of the fallen swords. It felt strange in his hand, too light and perfectly balanced. But a weapon was a weapon. He drove the blade through the gap in the armor, into the champion's heart. Silence again. Then the crowd began to stir. Some were still angry, but others were starting to feel something else. Something they had never felt when watching a slave fight. Respect. The third champion did not wait for an introduction. He charged through the gate before could catch his breath. He was the biggest yet, covered in the heaviest armor, carrying a massive hammer. His legs shook with exhaustion. His arm bled freely. The stolen sword suddenly felt heavy in his grip. The hammer swung, barely dodged. The ground where he had stood exploded into dust. Again and again, each swing came closer, was slowing down. His body was failing. The crowd began to chant, "Kill, kill, kill." Commander was smiling again. Princess gripped her throne so hard her knuckles turned white. The hammer swung one more time, tried to dodge, but his legs finally gave out. The hammer grazed his shoulder and sent him flying across the arena. He hit the wall hard. Stars exploded in his vision. He could taste blood in his mouth. The champion walked toward him slowly, taking his time, enjoying the moment. "Primitive creature," he growled. "Did you think you could defeat the Empire? You are nothing. Your species is nothing. After I kill you, we will burn your planet to ash." Lay on the ground, every part of him screamed with pain. It would be so easy to give up, so easy to let it end. But then he thought about Earth, about the billions of humans still fighting to survive, about his team who died so he could live, about Sora and all the slaves who were watching this fight, praying for a miracle. He was their miracle. He could not fail. Forced himself to stand. His legs trembled but held. He raised his sword with bloody hands. The champion laughed. "You still want to fight, foolish creature." He raised his hammer for the final blow. And threw his sword. It was not a throwing weapon. It was not balanced for flight, but had trained with weapons his entire life. He knew how to make anything fly. The sword spun through the air and found its target. The small gap between the champion's helmet and chest plate. The blade sank deep into his throat. The champion stood frozen. His hammer slipped from his fingers. Blood poured from the wound. Then he fell. The ground shook with his weight. Stood alone in the center of the arena. 3 champions lay dead around him. Blood covered his body, some his own, some theirs. For a long moment no one moved, no one spoke. Then Emperor rose from his throne. His voice carried across the silent arena. "What is this creature?" Princess stood beside him. Her voice was calm and clear. "A human, father. The species we dismissed as primitive. Perhaps we were mistaken." Pushed forward, his face twisted with rage. "Execute him. He used forbidden techniques. This is against the rules." But the Emperor raised his hand for silence. His ancient eyes studied like a scientist studying a new specimen. The rules were followed, the human won fairly. He paused. Let him speak. Guards pulled forward until he stood below the Emperor's platform. Every eye in the arena watched him. Human, the Emperor said, you have shown strength today, but strength means nothing against the Empire. What do you have to say? Looked up at the ruler of 1,000 worlds. He thought about all the right things to say, the diplomatic words, the careful phrases. Instead, he spoke the truth. There are 8 billion more like me on Earth. The Emperor's expression changed. The anger of the crowd faded into something else. Fear. 8 billion humans. 8 billion creatures who could kill champions with their bare hands. 8 billion fighters who did not know how to give up. The Empire had made a terrible mistake. And they were only just beginning to realize it. News of victory spread across the Empire like fire. Within hours, every slave world knew what had happened. A human had defeated 3 champions, alone, without weapons. The story grew with each telling. In the slave camps on Earth, humans whispered his name like a prayer. On mining worlds and factory planets, other enslaved species spoke of the human who proved the masters could bleed. For the first time in generations, the conquered dared to hope. The Empire's response was divided. Some nobles demanded its immediate execution. They called him a threat, a symbol that would inspire rebellion. Others wanted to study him, to understand how a primitive species could produce such a warrior. A few, very quietly, began to wonder if the Empire had made a mistake in underestimating humanity. Emperor listened to all these voices. Then he made his decision. Would live, not as a slave but as something new, something the Empire had never seen before. 3 days after the tournament, guards brought to a private chamber deep in the palace. His wounds had been treated by the finest doctors. His gray slave clothes had been replaced with simple black garments. No chains bound his wrists. General waited for him inside. Was different from other commanders. He was old, his gray skin marked with the scars of 100 battles, but his eyes were sharp, filled with cunning rather than cruelty. He was the Empire's greatest strategist, the mind behind countless victories. He gestured for to sit. I have studied your performance in the arena, said. I have also studied the records of Earth's invasion. Your species is fascinating. You lack technology, but you compensate with creativity. You turn weakness into strength. You adapt. Said nothing, he waited. The Empire is dying, continued. We do not admit this publicly, but it is true. Our borders are under attack. The collective presses against us from the outer reaches. You do not know they are a hive mind. Billions of creatures sharing one consciousness. They do not negotiate. They do not surrender. They only consume. Why are you telling me this? Because we are losing, leaned forward. They are powerful, but we fight with honor. We follow rules. We meet our enemies face to face and crush them with strength, but they have no honor. They attack from every direction. They sacrifice millions without hesitation. They use strategies we consider shameful. Understanding dawned in his mind. You want me to teach you how to fight like them, like humans? Yes, I have read your history. Your species has spent thousands of years killing each other. You have developed tactics that we never imagined. Guerrilla warfare, psychological operations, deception, sacrifice plays. Paused. I believe these tactics could save the Empire. And what do I receive in return? Smiled slightly. You are not stupid. Good. Here is my offer. Help us defeat and Earth will be reclassified. It will no longer be a slave world. It will become a protectorate with limited autonomy. Your people will have rights. They will have a future. Felt his heart beat faster. This was what he had been waiting for, a chance to help his people, a chance to change everything. But something felt wrong. Why should I trust you? He asked. The Empire destroyed my world, killed my family, enslaved my people. Why should I help you survive? Because the alternative is worse. His voice became hard. If the win, they will not stop at the Empire. They will spread across the galaxy like a plague. Every world will fall. Every species will be absorbed into their collective, including Earth. He stood and walked to a screen on the wall. It showed a map of the galaxy. A dark red stain spread across one edge, growing larger even as they watched. That is the territory. 20 years ago, it was half that size. In another 20 years, it will reach Earth. Your choice is simple. Help us stop them or watch your species disappear forever. Studied the map. He understood the danger. There were worse than at least let their slaves live. I need time to think. You have one day. Move to the door. But do not take too long. The war does not wait. That night met with Sara in secret. She had risked much to reach him, sneaking through service corridors to avoid detection. Sent a message, she said urgently. The resistance has been growing. We have contacts on 12 worlds now. Other enslaved species want to join us. They see you as a symbol. They believe you can lead us to freedom. Lead you to freedom, shook his head. I am one man. I cannot fight an empire. You already did. In that arena, you showed everyone that the masters can be defeated. Now they are asking, if one human can do that, what could 1,000,000 do? What could 1,000,000,000 do? Thought about the general's offer, freedom for Earth in exchange for helping the Empire. It was a good deal, maybe the best deal humanity would ever receive. But it meant working with the enemy. It meant forgetting the millions who had died. It meant betraying every slave in the Empire who looked to him for hope. Want you to join us, Sora continued. Not just as a symbol, as a leader. We are planning something big. When the time comes, we need you on our side. What are you planning? Sora hesitated. Then she told him about the communication network. The fleet depended on instant communication across vast distances. Every ship, every station, every army was connected through a central network. Sora had discovered a weakness in the system. That could be exploited. If we can access the network during a major battle, we can disrupt their communications. Even for a few hours, the chaos would be enormous. Ships would lose contact. Orders would be confused. Armies would be isolated. And during that chaos, the slaves would rise. Exactly, on every world at the same moment. The masters would be overwhelmed. They could not respond in time. It was a bold plan, a dangerous plan. If it worked, millions could be free. If it failed, billions would die in punishment. Wen asked. We do not know yet. We need more time, more resources, more information. Sora looked at him intently. Information that someone with access to the military command could provide. Understood. She wanted him to spy on, to accept the general's offer and betray him from inside. You want me to be a double agent. I want you to do what is right, help us or help them, but choose soon. The galaxy is changing. We need to change with it. She left through the shadows, leaving alone with his thoughts. Later that night, Princess came to his room. She moved quietly, her silver skin glowing faintly in the darkness. You spoke with General, she said, and with your resistance friend, I know about both. Tensed, if she reported him, he would die. But simply sat beside him. I am not here to threaten you. I am here to ask, what will you choose? You already seem to know everything. What do you think I should choose? Was quiet for a moment. I think you should choose whatever saves your people. That is what I would do. Even if it means betraying the Empire, your own people. The Empire is not my people. The Empire is a system, a machine that consumes worlds and calls it civilization. Her voice became soft. I was born into this machine. I was taught to believe it was right, but I have eyes. I have seen the suffering. I have seen the waste. This empire does not deserve to survive. Then why do you stay? Because I can do more from inside than outside. Because I have power here and power can be used for good or evil. She looked at him directly. You and I are the same. We are both playing games within games. We are both pretending to serve while planning something else. The only question is, are we playing together or against each other? Studied her face. In her purple eyes he saw something he had not seen before. Not a princess of the empire, not a political player, just a person tired of lies searching for something real. "What do you want?" he asked. "I want this to end, not with blood and fire but with real change. I want the slaves to be free and the empire to become something better. I want a future where species work together instead of conquering each other." "That sounds like a dream." "All change begins with a dream." She stood and moved toward the door. "Think about's offer, help him win his war, learn his secrets. And when the time comes, use those secrets for our people, all of them." "Our people, you mean?" Smiled sadly. "I mean everyone who wants to be free, human, all of us." She paused at the door. "We are not so different, someday maybe you will see that." Then she was gone. Lay in the darkness, thinking about everything he had heard. Two paths stretched before him. One led to safety for Earth but cooperation with evil. The other led to revolution but possible destruction. In the end he realized there was a third path, the hardest path, the most dangerous path. He would walk both roads at once. He would help and spy for the resistance. He would learn everything he could from both sides, and when the moment came, he would bring them together. Not for the empire, not for the resistance, for everyone who wanted a better future. It was a path that could get him killed 100 times over, but if it worked, it could change everything. He closed his eyes and made his decision. Tomorrow he would tell yes, and the real game would begin. For 1 year walked between two worlds. To the empire he was the human advisor. He stood in war councils beside general. He studied star maps and troop movements. He designed battle plans using tactics that they had never seen. Ambushes, feints, psychological attacks that broke enemy morale before the first shot was fired. His strategies worked. The empire began winning again. The first major victory came at the Battle of the Crimson Nebula. Forces had trapped a fleet in a cloud of charged gas. Normal tactics said retreat or die. Instead, following's plan, the fleet scattered into small groups and hid among the asteroids. When they entered to finish them, they found traps everywhere. Explosives on dead ships. False signals leading them into crossfires. The hunters became the hunted. The lost 40 ships, the lost 3. After that victory, everything changed. Nobles who had demanded execution now praised him as a genius. Military commanders sought his advice. He was given quarters near the war room, fine clothes and servants of his own. But every night, he returned to his true work. Through the slave network, sent information to Park and the resistance, fleet positions, security codes, the schedules of patrols. He identified which officers were cruel and which showed sympathy. He mapped every weakness in the Empire's military structure. Sara helped him. She worked in the science division, studying the communication network. Slowly, carefully, she built the tools they would need to exploit its weakness. One wrong move would mean discovery and death, but she never hesitated. Princess knew about everything. She did not ask questions. She simply helped where she could, using her position to protect when suspicion grew too close. She was playing her own game, one that did not fully understand, but he trusted her. He had to. Commander watched it all with burning hatred. Since the tournament had lost much of his power, success made his failure look worse. Nobles whispered that he had been beaten by a slave. His enemies grew bolder. His allies grew fewer. But was patient. He knew that secrets never stayed hidden forever. He assigned his most loyal spies to follow. He paid informants in the slave quarters. He searched for any proof that the human was betraying the empire. One by one, he found the threads. A servant who had seen meeting with other humans late at night. A guard who noticed coded messages being passed. A slave who broke under torture and spoke of something called the resistance. took his evidence to the one person who could not ignore it, the Emperor himself. The night before the Empire's greatest offensive against the Guards came for. He was in the war room reviewing the final battle plans with General. The door burst open and 20 soldiers poured in, weapons raised. Commander walked behind them, smiling. "Seize him," commanded. "Seize the traitor." Stepped forward. "What is the meaning of this? This man is essential to tomorrow's operation." "This man is a spy." Threw documents onto the table. "I have proof. He has been feeding information to an underground resistance. He has been planning a slave uprising to coincide with our attack on the. Everything he has given us is a lie." Stood still. His mind raced through options. Fighting was impossible. Escaping was impossible. All he could do was face what came next. Read the documents. His face grew dark. "Is this true?" Met his eyes without flinching. "Some of it." The room fell silent, even seemed surprised by the admission. "Some of it," repeated. "The battle plans I gave you are real. They will work. Everything I taught you about human tactics is true. I wanted the Empire to win against the because they are worse than you. But I also helped the resistance. I gave them information. I helped them prepare, because the Empire needed to change. Slavery had to end. This war had to become something different." Stared at him for a long moment. Something unreadable passed across his face. "Take him to the cells," he said finally. "The Emperor will decide his fate." Guards grabbed arms. As they dragged him away, he caught a glimpse of his triumphant smile. The commander had won at last. In another part of the palace, received word of the arrest. She had been preparing to escape. Her bags were packed. Her loyal servants waited. She had always known this day might come. But she did not run. Instead, she went to her father. Emperor received her in his private chambers. He looked old that night, worn down by years of war and politics. His golden throne seemed to swallow his thin body. "I know why you are here," he said before she could speak. "You want to save the human." "He is not a traitor, father. He is something more complicated. He helped us and helped them at the same time because he believed both sides could become better." "That is treason, daughter, no matter how he explains it." "Is it? Or is it something the Empire has never seen before? A person who serves ideals instead of masters?" Stepped closer. "Father, I know you are tired. I know you see the Empire crumbling. What if this human showed us another way? What if peace with the slaves is possible?" Laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Peace with the creatures we conquered. They would kill us the moment they had the chance." "Then why haven't they? The resistance has been growing for years. They could have sabotaged our ships. They could have poisoned our water, but they haven't. They have been waiting, hopping for change instead of demanding blood." The Emperor was quiet. For a moment, he seemed to actually consider her words. But the moment passed. "The human will be executed tomorrow, before the battle begins. I cannot appear weak. I cannot show mercy to traitors, even useful ones." He waved his hand. "Go now. Forget this foolishness. One day you will be empress and you will understand why strength matters more than ideals." Bowed and left, but she did not give up. That night she made contact with the resistance directly. Through hidden channels, she reached Sora and she told them what had happened. She told them the execution was scheduled for dawn. "We have to move now," said through the communicator. "The plan is not ready, but if we wait, dies." "Can you trigger the network disruption early?" asked. Sora's voice crackled through. "I can try. The is active. But without the signal going out to all worlds at once, the uprising will be scattered. Some will rise, others will not. It is better than nothing." Made the decision. "We go tonight. Pass the word to every contact. At dawn, when the execution begins, we strike. Whatever happens after, at least we try." The messages went out across the slave network, to Earth, to the mining worlds, to the factory planets. The word was simple: the time has come. In his cell, sat in darkness. He did not know about the plans being made above him. He did not know that had her father. He only knew that he had done everything he could, and it might not be enough. But he did not regret it. He thought about his team on Earth, about all the soldiers who had died fighting impossible battles. They had known they could not win. They had fought anyway because surrender was never an option. Tomorrow he would die, but he would die standing. He would die fighting. That was the human way. He closed his eyes and waited for dawn. Dawn came to Prime with blood-red skis. The Colosseum of Dominion filled once again. This time, not for a tournament, for an execution. Word had spread across the capital that the human advisor, the slave who had defeated 3 champions, would die this morning. Millions came to watch. Emperor sat on his throne above the arena. General stood nearby, his face showing no emotion. Commander stood at the center of the sand, a ceremonial blade in his hand. His moment of triumph had finally arrived. Guards dragged onto the arena floor. His hands were bound behind his back. Fresh bruises covered his face from the night's interrogations, but he walked with his head high. He would not give them the pleasure of seeing him broken. The crowd watched in silence. Some had come to cheer his death. Others had come to mourn. Among the spectators, hidden in different sections, resistance members waited. They did not know if the plan would work. They only knew they had to try. In a control room deep beneath the palace, Sara sat before a complex machine. Her fingers trembled over the controls. Everything depended on the next few minutes. "Ready?" His voice came through her earpiece. "Ready," her voice was steady. "When the blade falls, I activate the..." "Good luck." Sara closed her eyes for a moment. Then she opened them and focused. In the arena, the announcer's voice boomed across the crowd. "Citizens of the Empire, today we witness the punishment of traitors. The human who dared to conspire against us will pay the ultimate price. Let this be a lesson to all who dream of rebellion." Walked toward, his blade gleaming in the morning light. His smile was wide with pleasure. "I have waited a long time for this," he whispered so only could hear. "Ever since the auction, I knew this moment would come. You should have died in the arena. Now you die like the animal you are." Looked past him up at the Emperor's platform. He saw standing in the shadows, watching. Their eyes met. She mouthed one word, "Now." Sara's fingers hit the controls. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then every screen in the Colosseum flickered. Alarms began to wail across the city. In the sky above, military ships suddenly stopped moving, their communications dead. Across the Empire, on 1,000 worlds, the same thing happened. The network collapsed. Chaos erupted. In the arena, guards looked around in confusion. The crowd began to panic. Nobody understood what was happening. But the slaves understood. All at once they moved, not just in the Colosseum, everywhere. On Earth, workers in the factories seized their tools and turned on the guards. On the mining worlds, slaves collapsed the tunnels and trapped their masters inside. On military stations, human and alien servants locked doors and sabotaged systems. The uprising had begun. Froze, his blade raised above his neck. He looked around at the chaos, unable to process what was happening. That moment of hesitation was enough. From the crowd, a group of resistance fighters charged the arena floor. They were slaves from the palace, servants who had waited months for this chance. They overwhelmed the guards before anyone could react. One of them cuts bonds. A weapon was pressed into his hand. Appeared beside them. She wore armor now, hidden beneath her royal robes. A blaster was in her grip. "Time to go," she said. Roared with fury and charged at them. His blade swung towards head. Intercepted him. The 2 enemies finally faced each other, not as master and slave, as warriors, as equals. Attacked with brutal strength. Each blow shook arms. The The commander was faster, stronger, better trained. Everything about him screamed that he should win. But had something lacked: experience against superior enemies, the knowledge of how to turn strength into weakness. Overreached, slipped past his guard and struck at the knee joint. The commander stumbled, his blade dropped. Did not hesitate, his weapon found its target. Fell to the sand, blood spreading around him. He stared up with disbelief in his dying eyes. "How?" he gasped. "You are nothing, your species is nothing." Looked down at him without hate, only tired satisfaction. "We are survivors. It is the only thing we have ever been." His eyes went dark, his body stilled. Around them, the battle continued. Resistance fighters clashed with palace guards. The crowd scattered in every direction. Flames rose from buildings across the city. Emperor stood on his platform, watching his empire crumble in real time. His face showed no fear, only cold understanding. "This is how it ends," he said to himself. General came to his side. "Your Majesty, we must evacuate. The palace defenses are failing." "No," shook his head. "I will stay. I will face what I created." He drew his ceremonial sword and walked toward the arena floor. Whatever he intended, he never reached it. A stray explosion caught the platform. The Emperor vanished in fire and smoke. The crowd screamed. The battle paused for just a moment as everyone watched the impossible. Emperor was dead. The Empire had no leader. That pause was all the resistance needed. They together and pushed forward. More fighters poured in from across the city, not just humans, alien slaves from a dozen conquered worlds, all fighting side by side. By noon, the palace was theirs. News spread across the galaxy like lightning. The Emperor was dead, the capital had fallen, the slaves had risen. Some worlds surrendered immediately. Their garrisons were small, their populations mostly slaves. The transition was peaceful. Other worlds fought back. Loyalist commanders refused to accept defeat. Battles raged for months. Millions died on both sides. But the outcome was never in doubt. The Empire had depended on fear and control. Once those were broken, it could not stand. 1 year later, representatives from every liberated world gathered on Prime. They came to build something new. A free worlds alliance where every species had a voice, where slavery was forbidden, where the past would not be repeated. Stood at the window of a human-built starship, watching the gathering below. The ship was the first vessel created by Earth's own technology, enhanced with alien science. It represented everything humanity had become. Sora stood beside him, now head of the Alliance's Science Council, had taken leadership of Earth's new government. Others he had fought with held positions across the new order. Princess approached. She wore simple clothes now, no longer royalty but an advisor to the Alliance. Her help during the uprising had earned her trust, though some still watched her with suspicion. "You should be down there," she said. "They are talking about making you a symbol, the hero of the revolution." Shook his head. "Heroes cause trouble. I would rather build than be." "What will you build?" He thought about the question, about everything that had happened, about everyone who had been lost. "Something that lasts, something my team would have been proud of." He paused. "Something better than what came before." Nodded. She stood beside him in comfortable silence, looking out at the stars. "Do you regret it?" she asked finally. "All the death, all the destruction, was it worth it?" Considered the question carefully. He remembered the slave markets, the beatings, the years of humiliation. He remembered the arena and the sound of crowds calling for his blood. He remembered friends who died so others could live. "I regret that it was necessary," he said. "I regret that so many suffered, but I do not regret that we are free. Freedom is always worth fighting for." "And now, what comes next for humanity?" Smiled. It was the first real smile he had allowed himself since Earth fell. "Whatever we want, that is the whole point." Below them, the representatives signed their treaty. Across the galaxy, former slaves looked up at the sky and felt hope for the first time. On Earth, children played in streets that had once known only fear. The Empire was gone, something new was beginning. And at the heart of it all were the humans, the primitive species that should have been nothing, the creatures that everyone had underestimated. They had been mocked, they had been enslaved, they had been sentenced to death. But they had never stopped fighting, they had never given up. And in the end, they had changed the galaxy. Not because they were stronger or smarter or more advanced than anyone else, but because they were human, because they endured, because no matter how many times they fell, they always stood up again. That was their gift, that was their power. And it was only the beginning. Turned from the window and walked toward the shuttle that would take him down to the surface. There was work to be done, a future to build. Behind him, the stars burned bright with promise. Humanity had risen, and they were never going back down.